talk about used car acquisition. We're here to talk about everything used cars. And today we're going to kick it off by talking about kind of the difference between what we see being tolerated in dealerships between the F&I department. And F&I departments have gone through a huge evolution, and why we don't why we do tolerate things in used car departments that we would never tolerate in the F&I department. But I'm just going to kind of bring everybody who wasn't in the business back in the 90s forward so you can realize that F&I has made a huge transition over that period of time. The used car department is still kind of trapped in 1995. So let's just go through a few of these. So one of the problems with F&I, or with the used car managers departments, is with F&I, for every additional 65 to 85 deals that you sell, they add another F&I manager. You add, double that, you're going to add 2 F&I managers. Now, for used car managers, they do the same thing. If you sell another 85 cars, they're going to add another manager. The question is, though, the used car manager is actually required to appraise cars, not just sell cars. And as we increase appraisals, and we need to keep increasing appraisals, we don't necessarily increase the manager. If we need to increase appraisals by 2x, 3x, or 4x, that doesn't mean that we're going to increase the staffing that much. So that's one major issue between the two things right now. We need to rethink that and get more people in a dealership involved in that. Client engagement. 100% of the buyers, if anybody's bought a car recently, you've met with a finance manager, they've gone through the options and done all the stuff that they do. But how many times when you went in to buy a car did you actually experience an active appraisal with the used car manager present, the way that CarMax does, or somebody like that? So I'll start right there, Mark. You lease a lot of cars, both of you do. So when you bought your last car, or leased your last car, did you sit down with the F&I manager?
So I think what's happened over the years from when you worked at the Olds place, I started, working at an Acura store back in the late 90s, and the average F&I gross was $300 or $400 a car. And that was not only acceptable, it was a good job. Here's the key. The key is, they knew they weren't just going to take a regular F&I guy and make him into a $1,500 or $2,000 a car stud. So they needed to adjust the process. In order to get to those types of numbers, the product has to be sold. You can't leave a hurdle for the guy. You can't leave the payment stripped out, all the things that we've heard for 30 years, which is all true, by the way. So the difference between that and the used car process is totally different. The used car process is, it's like the Wizard of Oz. The guy stays behind the scenes. And in most cases, you're never going to meet that guy unless one of two things. You're buying a car or you're on your way out the door. Okay? And on the way out the door, that's just normally a formality to give you the business card, right? In case you have any questions. And what was the difference between 1996 at $300 a car at a Buick store versus even now at a Honda store, which, and Honda, BMW, like all of these places, you're getting up to these big F&I numbers because the front end gross has dropped, but the back end gross has picked up. And
but they're also not deviating from the process. But you'll be terminated in a dealership if you're not presenting the products, if you're not going through and asking them all the questions that you should be asking them on an appraisal, right? That we just simply don't ask.
Correct.
And I know, Chris, you see a lot of dealerships. You see ones that hold their salespeople accountable. You see ones that don't. Obviously, you got CarMax that's out there proving proof of concept that if you take every single customer, now you might be able to do it in 2 minutes, and you can't take shortcuts, and you might have to scan it with an OBD scanner, and you might actually have to take some pictures and sit there and go through the whole car. But why do you think that so many dealers tolerate managers not doing that? And why do you think that managers, other than it just being easy, what's their hesitation with not being more thorough when they're getting paid on the gross profit?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple ways to dissect that one. I think what Mark was getting to with profit centers, I think you're starting to see it now where dealers are actually realizing that their service departments are actually actively looking to buy more cars off the street from the consumer. What made the F&I work and how it's gone to where it's gone today is a process. And I just think each dealer that you would go to has its unique process, right? You're new. Okay. The used car manager is a unique point in the dealership because that position, you're coinciding with the new car department, the parts department, the service department, and obviously the F&I department. Okay. So you're the one position that's integral to everything. And not only that, once a car comes in, the recon process, the shop, the parts, I mean, you have to have those whole teams. Everybody has to be on the same page, because if you need something to work and you want to move the needle from buying, 10 a week to 25 a week, that's not a small number, even though it doesn't sound like a lot. And it really needs a process. You need to be able to do the same thing. Everybody's got to know. It's the beauty of AccuTrade. If somebody got up and left, and if everything is done correctly, the next person can come sit down, pick up, see exactly where they left off, and move. Why? Because we're used car managers. We developed a tool that encapsulates everything we could possibly think of when we're trying to appraise a car properly. The miles, the color, the history report, the options, the common problems with a car. It's heat in the market at the present time. How many of these do we have in stock? Do we sell these? What's going on in my local market? Like, all this is going through, but AccuTrade, it puts everything right there. I'm not trying, this isn't a total sales pitch for that, but we're talking about processes. That's what you need, and you need it to be uniform. You need it that everybody can have access. So if it's the manager, and you can have a salesperson appraise a car, even the receptionist or the person that's intaking the car when the service client's coming in, it's process.
I'll ask both of you. Start with you, Mark. Would you have guessed that the more cars you appraise, the less you're going to lose?
No, the math, to me, that math doesn't add up. I mean, you got to believe in just based on, the more you see, the more you touch, the more you have.
Well, you're going to win more trades, but you also think you're going to lose more trades. But what we're seeing is that the customers actually stop shopping once they get a number.
Yeah, listen, the whole consensus that everybody's shopping is all bullshit. It's never been true. Yeah, listen, they only
is it because we won't give them the number? We're forcing them to keep shopping.
Correct. That's exactly why. I mean, as consumers, which we all are, if we could get the answer the first time, we wouldn't go second and third and whatever. Is there a percentage of people that definitely enjoy that end of it? Absolutely. But by and large, most people can't stand wasting time on the same repetitive thing. If I ask a question and I get the answer, I have the answer. Now, could it be off, a few bucks here? Yeah, sure. But
let's have that conversation instead of just not giving them a number.
You're better off having, the conversation and taking the temperature. And even if the expectation is realistic, and that's where most salespeople go wrong. The consumer today is so much smarter than they ever were. And not only are they smarter, they know more than we do about cars. Like, I talked to my neighbor. Oh, I'm interested in a Hyundai Palisade or whatever. I'm like, yeah. Well, what do you think? Yeah, I think it's great. Well, it's got this, it's got that, it's got this, it's got that. He sold me. I said, yeah, maybe I should get one. So, like, at the end of the day, like, these guys that are shopping, they have the answers already. They just want to see how.
Do you know what you're talking about? So, Chris, talking about what things that you know about that maybe other people don't know about, including me. I've had a few friends this week, and I don't know why this is the hottest thing. You'll tell me, I'm sure. I've had a couple people saying, is right now the right time to buy a Porsche GT3 RS? And then, should I buy new? Should I buy used? How should I look at that? Are the prices going up? Should I hold off for a year? Did they hit the peak? And I don't know why everybody's obsessed with this particular car, but tell me what you think about that.
Well, it's interesting timing on that question. Uh, you know, let's just segue. Let's go to segue into a perfect thing. Okay, so we've been hearing about tariffs for the past few months. Obviously, we saw some implementation in the beginning of May, and it affects a lot of different cars, a lot of different brands, components, things like that. So us, as keeping our barometer of the market, we watch, and we wait to see what starts to happen. Now, of all the tariffs, of all the cars out there that are impacted by tariffs, there's really only one that I've really seen go crazy. And it's a Porsche, and it happens to be a Porsche 911 in all variants, okay? And especially a late model car. Yeah, your Caymans, your Boxsters, they're good, even your Cayennes and stuff, but it's the 911, okay? Why does everybody want a GT3 right now? Probably the Dot 2 is coming out, and it's going to be another 70,000 more than the current one. When I say a Dot 2 in Porsche speak, that is
that's the 992.
That's the refresh of the 992 series, which is the body style or chassis that they have now as a 992, and they do a Dot 1 and then a Dot 2.
Which I prefer personally over the 993. It's more subtle.
Oh yeah, I mean, 992 is a great car, but why are they so hot? It's something that's they're very few of, and a lot of people want them. The other thing that's happening, not just a GT3 RS, but just the regular GT3 market. The new car is 50,000 more. For the Dot 2 GT3 before the other one. So what's that going to do? It's keeping the prices of your 23s, your 22s, even back in your 991 cars, which is 2019. So that's the only.
So just for everybody else that doesn't know this world, because it is like a subculture of another subculture, what you're talking about, can you explain to just the masses? Can somebody just off the street go into a Porsche dealership and buy a GT3? What's that look like?
Oh.
Why do they consider used cars? Like, what's the deal with that?
So Porsche's gotten to be much like Ferrari has, and the GT Porsche car is the halo car in the lineup. And then when you get a GT and they put an RS badge on the end of it, that even takes it up another notch. Okay, so very few allocation per year. Dealers, it's not a Porsche thing in general, but dealers, that's the car. Okay, you have to buy four of these. You got to buy 2 Taycans, and then we'll put you in an electric Macan. Okay, and you got to take that, and then we'll put you in the base Macan after that, and then we'll get you in a 911. But it's only a base. You can't have no, and that's the way it goes. So there's a lot of people that are like, screw it. I would like to have the car now. If I'm going to pay a premium for a new one, I'll pay a premium for a used one. I did it. Okay, so I wanted my GT car. I got it, and I'm happy. But when you want something that there's very few of, everybody wants, and you can easily sell something $100,000 over sticker. Yeah, who wouldn't want a GT3?
And that's the great thing that Porsche does. We know it goes on in Ferrari, but there's not that many Ferrari buyers the way there are Porsche buyers. And I used to work for Porsche back in 04 to 07, and it was really well designed how they did it, because you knew they were only making X amount. They knew they could sell way more than they made. They knew it, but they didn't care. And because they didn't give a shit about that, it started, this trajectory on where we're at now, where, listen, a good Porsche is just about as valuable now in some of these prices as a Ferrari. Like,
yeah, the way they hold
some
their value
cases.
is
Would you rather have a Roma, or would you rather have a 991? Or, I mean, it's
not even open for
discussion.
Yeah,
right.
It's not even,
because when you pull up in a Roma, and it's a cool car, it really has a good look and everything. It looks like a Mercedes AMG. Well, you pull up in a Roma, and the real car guys are like, ah, shit, that poor guy's got his 296 Special on order. You know, he's got another Roman to go after that, or maybe we'll put him in a Portofino. So, I mean, it's unfortunate.
That's what I wanted everybody to hear on the show.
Yeah, it's like being the thinnest girl at fat camp. You know what I mean? Like it just, like it's great,
And
but it's no good.
There's a dude that showed up at Cars and Coffee a few weeks ago. I mean, this car was beautiful, like a dark green with brown guts, and he is so damn proud of it. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, that's the first thing that went through my head. And I feel,
When's your 296 coming in?
Yeah, I feel bad, But hey, listen, I don't have a 911, I have a Cayman, but still, there's always that, oh, he's only got a Cayman, not a 911 deal. But
GT4 is faster than a GT3, right? No.
She'll hang close. She'll hang close. It's mid-engine versus rear engine, and for the value play in the long run, and I do mean a long run, they made a lot less GT4s than they made GT3s. So.
I got out of the rat race. The Porsche thing, I had a 911. I really liked it. I moved on. I'm an Audi guy. I got an R8. You know what? I'm happy with that. It's not as fancy as a good 911, maybe. I don't know, but it sounds pretty sexy going down the street. And at the end of the day, like all these cars, they're all great. I mean, there's no bad one. The startup Ferrari there that, but at the end of the day, everybody makes a really spectacular car. And we're picking the pepper out of the fly shit because we're car people. Nobody knows, you see the prancing horse. It's beautiful. So, you know what I mean? There's no,
everybody knows what that is, right?
Exactly. Can't be.
So let's transition into this to close this out. I want to talk about the best end user theory, right? Bob Hollinshead's, proven claim to fame. My question to both of you is, how do you identify best end user for a vehicle like that? If you're a dealer, like, I'll give you an example. I was a Toyota dealer, took in a 992, an older one. Customer comes into a used car lot. It wasn't the fanciest showroom that there was. Got it on the showroom. We bought it from a consumer because nobody else would give a number to it sight unseen. Didn't trust it. Didn't have AccuTrade. And so we're taking in these cars. Customer comes in, he's looking at it, and he's walking around. Salesperson greets him. He goes, "Hey man, is this a 992 or what is this?" And he said, "No, I don't know if you know your cars. This is the 911." And I'm watching this go on from the sales tower, and the customer's looking at the salesperson, and he's kind of confused, and he's like, "Where did you get this from?" And he said, "Oh, we bought it from somebody off the street." He's like, "Well, there's a Porsche dealership across the street. Why didn't they sell it to them?" "I don't know. Do you want it?" And he goes, "No, you know what? I think, do you have a card?" And he left. So we were obviously not the best end user. I take that car, maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks later, try to sell it. We're priced so aggressively on cars.com and all the other sites. Take it to the Atlanta auto auction and make $15,000 more than I had it listed retail on cars.com. So when we talk about best end user, a lot of people scoff about, "Oh, well, everybody's the best end user. I'm the best end user for everything," right? And I thought I was too. Can you give some examples or maybe walk the listeners through what that means for a best end user? Because when they look at an average auction value, or they look at something, everybody thinks that everybody can get that value or everybody can sell the car from that. So we'll start with you first, Mark. When you hear that best end user, how can you communicate that to everybody's listening to this, what that means?
So to be the best end user, you got to have a couple of key attributes here. It's been my, personal opinion based on fact and seen it live many, many times. We'll take somebody like Meat Man Sam, for example, okay, who does a spectacular job. He runs the Audi store in the pre-owned department. Going back right before COVID, him and I had a discussion about opening up a thing called the gallery. And what the gallery was all kinds of highline cars. I said to him, why don't we start with, a good $30,000 to $70,000, a 14 G wagon, like stuff that yeah, like it's readily available, but that nichey, what Chris likes to call a cheater car, right? I'm a big fan of a good cheater car, a good Rolls Royce, you know what I mean? Like those types of cars that there's not a ton of them in the marketplace. And for that price point, you could feel like, you could feel like $1,000,000. What we've learned is we could sell Corvettes. And I think now he's got maybe 12 or 15 Corvettes over there. And he's kind of gravitated toward it because why the Corvette buyer's a pain in the ass. They're nowhere near as much. And I say this wholly, with the
Respectfully.
A Porsche buyer, for
The worst.
example, is never going there. We've had tons of them. We've tried them all. It's never going to happen. Why? Because the guy, and even though he has an out, and listen, the kids and the guys at the Audi store are very professional. They know their product inside and out. But a guy who's going to spend the type of money it's going to take to acquire the car wants to go through the whole process. Okay.
They want the experience. They want to have that interaction with
the service department, like the certified warranty, the whole 9 yards, the keychain, the hat. We all got Porsche hats when we bought, like it's all part of it. And so why some of it will work, if you're a GMC dealer and you got the Escalade and yeah, listen, that's kind of a plug and play thing. When you cross reference the Audi guy, he can't sell a Lexus. There's a Lexus dealer across the street and he can't sell a Lexus. He can make it the cheapest one on V Auto. He ain't selling it. It just doesn't work. So to find where the best end user is, first of all, you got to know the product, because when the more you spend, the more you have to know, because a lot of these
higher the expectation is.
The expectations are higher. But one of the quirkiest things, and we keep resorting back to Porsches, but it's the truth. Like no two Porsches are the same. Like,
well, how about we'll use Teslas?
Tesla's the same thing.
Somebody's coming in on EV. I had it happen to me, and they're asking about charging stations. They're like, I don't know what to tell you, because they it's not something they do every day. It's not something they learned. And then I've got Alex Lawrence at EV Auto, who's selling 100 and something EVs a month. He's opened up 4 new locations. That's all he does, and he wholesales all the combustion engine cars. But his team knows everything inside and out, and the customers love it.
And just like my neighbor who told me about the Hyundai, it's the same thing. And listen, it's not a big stretch to sell a Volt versus a Tesla, a Model 3. But a lot of these guys are actually becoming better end users. For example, they also found that any of these cars that fall under the government programming, okay, which a lot of people went to sleep on that. The guy you're talking about did not go to sleep on that program. And as a result, the guy was selling hundreds of those cars because he was actively advertising it. So some of the local dealers that I buy cars from were doing the same thing. And we've seen it in the auction, right, Chris? We've seen it
That's where I'm going to go. Yep.
Yeah, like you can set your watch to when it would start and when it would stop. And because
bidding on it.
Correct.
When they're going to start, all the usual players.
Let's shift gears into that. So, Chris, what are you seeing at the auction? And then I need to know about these cheater cars, but what that means. But what like on the EVs in the auction dynamics, or at least the last person standing with their hand up, the best end user, take us home with that.
So, I mean, as a wholesaler and as any merchandiser, I should just back forward up. You got to know who you're going to sell your widget to when you buy it. Okay. Now, us as wholesalers, we don't have a choice of what we get to buy. We're offered something and we have to buy it. So you learn quickly. You definitely get burned and you definitely fall down, but you start to learn that, okay, this older truck with some rust and this, I know X, Y, and Z is going to buy that. I know what it is. I know they usually think, these trucks have bad transits. They kind of buy to that on the conservative side, On the flip side, where you mentioned EVs. I know probably about 5 or 6 dealers that always want an EV. In fact, this dealer or that dealer, those two, they'll really bid on all the EVs. They'll bid on the EQS. They'll bid on the i4. They'll bid on the Rivian. They'll bid on the Lucid. Okay, so you can see who's not afraid of them. So I know when I'm going to the auction that week with some EVs, I know there's going to be a reliable group of bidders on those cars. And then we get into the fancy cars and the luxury cars. A lot of those, you get the luxury cars that a Range Rover with the big wheels, a late model with a white and black, tuxedo two-tone and things like that. Not usually going to a Range Rover store. Those cars end up going to a used car dealer that specializes in those higher end used cars. You see like somebody like George Saliba, right? You see his lot, he has everything there. He's equipped that way to sell it. You could just, the way it's presented there, he knows his stuff. His team knows his stuff. People are comfortable doing business with them. In this way, if he's on a car and he might be battling out with somebody else, but he knows and has it sold, boy, the best 10 user is always going to take that extra step. Like George, I don't think he's ever missed an M3 in his life, So
No, he wants them all.
No, he wants them all, and why not? They're hot,
and everybody knows it. And everybody, if I can't put the deal together, I'm calling him.
Right. And that's how it comes back to us, because they know that we can, we will pay the most. We know that we could get a couple extra shillings in our lane. And they know, our customer base knows that. And again, like a lot of guys I buy cars from, they're like, listen, I couldn't take a car to the auction and do it just because of the legacy, the amount of cars you're bringing to the auction,
the arbitration aggravation they know they won't have to deal with.
Yeah. And it's, I hear it time and time again. I'd rather make my X and just be done with it, and off it goes. At the end of the day, like I won't step foot in a casino. This is not my thing,
Makes two of us. Well, I go in there, but I don't gamble.
Yeah, right. Same thing. But like, when I stop and I think about it, I'm a degenerate gambler for a living when it comes to buying cars. It's always a roll of the dice, and it's, I'm going to pay a little bit for that one, but maybe XYZ's in the lane, and da-da-da-da-da. And as you do that, and as you push, and as you search, and as this has been a part of our lives for 10, 15 years, it becomes a sense, so to speak. And
Intuitive.
You'll understand when you have something kind of weird, you'll understand who's going to buy it. And you'll understand how that person buys too.
And that's the greatest thing about Friday. The best end user is always revealed, and a lot of times you just scratch your head. But there's times Chris and I will be talking and we'll say, drive times buying that. Like we don't even, we know if it's got smudging miles and it's, an 18 or a 19 and it's the best thing. And you don't need to go to college to figure it out. You look at book and it carries a heavy NADA trade value so they can put their people in it. Like there's a whole science to it.
You almost know when the whole tax thing starts. You see all the credit banks start bidding at the auction on the set of units, 80,000 mile 2-year-old, pickup truck at an 18 or something like that. Something that they could retail in the 20s or something.
But there's no one group, no one buyer, not the biggest dealer on earth that's sitting there holding their hand up on every single car saying, I'm the best end user for every single one of these cars.
Not possible.
No.
Right.
No, or we wouldn't be able to make a living.
And Mark, you said it, I guess we'll close it out. I think it's a great show, but what you said is the most true thing. Every single Friday, the best end user is revealed. So no matter what anybody thinks, you just have to look for the last man standing. And that is the best end user, regardless of what anybody thinks or whatever he wants to look at some Manheim market report or any other auction data source that they have. That's really where the action happens. And whoever it is, this the last person on that simulcast or whatever that's dropping the hammer, that's the best end user.
Yeah, the greatest thing that Bob Holland said, and we've been lucky to be a part of it for as long as we've been, is that, when you come to Manheim, Pennsylvania on a Friday in lane 17 or lane 18, you're in the major leagues. Like there's CarMax, there's anybody and everybody that, you know, these guys, they study the lane all week. They know what options it has. Like, these guys are very in tune with the market, and these guys push to the top to become the best end user. And there's no like MMR, like it's all great and it's great for a gauge and all that stuff. But when you're just sitting there watching and you see two guys bid on a car that, you know, was retail makes absolutely no sense, I assure you they're not doing that to lose 10,000. They're the best end user. They have an
Right.
for that.
And they know something everybody else might not.
Correct. Correct.
Yep. I got a lot of
Well,
guys that knows he's not going to make, you know, he buys cars at the auction. He's like, you know, I know I'm not going to make the biggest front end grosses, but I'm getting trades out of that. I'm getting this. I'm getting, he's buying a candy car. He gets it like, and he gets people coming in on.
Or they buy it, a car that's the most desirable car, and they pay off the end of the book, and they ask off the end of the book, and there's nothing to compare it to. And that's when it comes down to your experience, your knowledge, and everything like that. So on that note, we're going to close it out. That's episode 2, and we'll be having episode 3 tuning in the very near future. Any comments or any questions that you want to ask these two savants about anything about used cars, put it in the comments below. And that's what we'll use in terms of the questions that we ask for the next episode. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you guys soon.